Hi Priya, hi Rashmi.
Hi,
Hey,
Jyoti.
So I was just thinking that given the month that it is, there is a lot of talk on inclusivity, feeling safe, being accepted everywhere that we go. Now, in an organization, there are different ways in which psychological safety plays out. It's never a one-dimensional thing. So I was just wondering, how would you say a manager or a leader can actually ensure this in simple ways and not so simple ways also, like some subtle ways and some very obvious ways.
no, I mean, if I look at psychological safety, I think it's going to be a very defining theme for organizations and teams to not ignore. I think it's going to be an imperative because we're talking about teaming being the going to be the driving force for organizational change and adapt to all the market external changes that are happening, right? So, but what I strongly believe is it cannot be ignored, and we need to there's a lot of misconceptions around it, and sometimes people have not had a proper vocabulary to understand it. So I think that's important to kind of understand what is psychological safety, what is trust, because in coaching conversations, when I bring it up with people, they usually sometimes, in many times, I would say that they talk about trust as a psychological say as psychological safety. And sometimes just being just providing a supportive environment is considered a psychological safety. So a lot of I think misconceptions around what this really means, and I think if we are able to throw some light around it, it may be great. And I think Rashmi, would you have some clarity on what really is this psychological safety all about, that we should and how is it different from trust?
Right. So, psychological safety and trust have been used interchangeably, and it's quite important that we draw a distinction between both the things. So, trust, if I talk about trust, it could mean that I believe that you can do this task. I have faith in your capabilities. But that's how far the trust goes. But when we really talk about psychological safety, it's a two-way street. Unlike trust, which is like just one way that I'm extending my trust in you. Whereas psychological safety is about the other person really experiencing the freedom to express themselves in the way that they see fit. And also, that is where creativity will blossom. Because uh, if as a leader one extends the trust, but it's not really felt by the other, then it is not psychological safety. And then the members of the team will really not feel comfortable in expressing themselves, in sharing their ideas, in sharing their points of view. So psychological safety goes far beyond just trust, although it is a component.
I think although trust can be both predictive as vulnerability based trust, as what Patrick Lencioni puts it, right? You have two types of trusts. And I think a lot of emphasis is given to, leaders. I think the pandemic primarily taught that in leaders, right? To have that level of empathy and understand each person, I'm sure, has shared multiple stories of what they've gone through. So that level of vulnerability and predictiveness is there in trust. But when you move into other aspects of team dynamics like conflict orientation or setting commitments and accountability and driving collective results, I think psychological safety makes it to build build a team culture, like people are having the ownership to ask positive or constructive questions to fellow team members, to extend them, to not to kind of not see people for who they are, but for who they could be. And unless that psychological safety is created, teams can never discover who they could be.
Right, right.
Right? That's exactly what I'm seeing, Chandrani here.
Yeah.
But Rashmi, I mean, is there other things that we should be? What are some of the aspects is how leaders can bring this out in a day-to-day, managerial situations, or while setting team culture and norms, etc. Is there any thoughts from you on that?
Yeah, Priya, as you were talking, I was reflecting on that, and I think that the word itself, psychological safety, has psychology built into it. It's quite important that we also bring another lens to examine this phenomena in terms of what really psychological safety means. And there are some um, studies and various projects that were undertaken to really understand the team dynamics from the psychological perspective. And it starts with the father of psychoanalysis, Freud, who actually showed that there was a link between participation and release of creative forces, and which is where a deep psychological connection is built. And uh, it is these dynamics where the leaders and the team members can really um, feel that safety to express themselves. So one of the phenomena, as in a paper by Patrick Leary and Patrick Leary, they mention is that how leaders can provide a holding environment, which is very similar to something that a mother does for a child, in the initial stages, because that's the first part where the whole dynamics of psychological safety starts, where the child starts feeling trusting of its environment based on the responses of the mother. And this is the holding environment theory is by a famous psychologist, again, Winnicott, who saw familiar relationships, which also kind of in a mother-child dynamics, which also then extend into the work dynamics between a leader and a team. So how is it that a leader makes available the holding environment for its team, really impacts the way the team kind of shows up? So if, for example, we spoke about attachment theories, Priya, and uh, we explored how different people develop based on the care that they have received in their childhood. Um, if the caregiver has been attentive, and so they learn to trust the environment, they learn to kind of build a very
Pure
secure,
attachment.
yeah, and um, so these dynamics again play out in teams
Hmm.
between leaders and the team members. That what is the kind of environment that the leader is generating? Is he attentive to what the team needs? Is he responsive? Or so the team kind tends to be could possibly um, behave similarly. So
Hmm.
there are many aspects I think that we need to look at where building psychological safety is concerned, and take the learnings from psychology 101, and kind of see how they play out in our uh, organizations, in our between the groups and people, and the learnings from there actually have quite a bit of impact.
Hmm.
Right.
It also takes me back to what we earlier spoke about as in role biography. I think that's a concept you introduced me to, Rashmi.
Yes,
And
that concept is by Susan Long,
Hmm.
who spoke about how our past, how we show up as in our journey from the time that we are 6 or 16. Those aspects are, again show up in our leadership, and there are some aspects that we are bringing into the way we experience, or we explore the roles that we are in our organizations.
Correct, correct.
Right.
I mean, I certainly just, I mean, while you're talking about, I mean, each leader comes up with their own set of experiences, and they'll have their own lenses to what they should do and what they should create with their teams, and then each of the team members. So it's a very complex dynamics, and I think organizations should you can't really touch upon psychological safety in just in a classroom learning, right? It has to be a
Right.
very reflective. So if organizations have to really build this and create as what I call as or what many people are also calling these days as creating fearless organizations, right? If you
Right.
want to create fearless organizations, you need to make it like a it should be part of the fabric of the organization, where there are great people who can support them, not
Yeah.
just one or two,
Yeah.
but a lot of people who can support their teams to reflect and and go back and then slowly change the model. So I really don't think that psychological safety can just be shifted through a 2 month intervention or just like a 2 day intervention, right? It takes a period of time,
Right.
it lots of self-awareness, and then a lot of elements are hardwired along with the self-awareness, and you need to untie them till you get into a newer lens to approach this, right? And that, I think, will really take time, but it is possible and doable, provided that it's the intent and the action that an organization or a team embarks on.
Right.
True.
Right. From an
Yeah.
employee perspective, if I may say, like I think however different we are as team members and all, I think everyone at a very basic level wants the space to have clear communication. Like it's something we don't get in a lot of organizations, sadly, but actually it is that simple. Like whether I'll be able to talk to my manager without fear, ask clarity, seek clarity, or even ask for things, or communicate that I'm having a bit of problem, so I need support. But that becomes quite challenging in a lot of places where you might meet very autocratic managers and all, and it gets difficult then. I mean, how do you really communicate? How do you progress the work when it's communication is that crippled?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, these are the dimensions, right? How do you communicate? And if a team doesn't feel safe and secure, they can't really voice out their
Yeah, yeah.
opinion or their both the what they see for the organization and what they see for themselves, right? So
Right,
they won't
right.
talk about it. And so there's a lot of I would say great talent, but kept under the radar. So that's how it
Right,
looks like when
right.
you don't have a safe environment for them, or when they don't feel that safety to voice out. So I think it's a lot of dimensions like this, and
Right.
many more, right? I think those are the ones that gets into the day-to-day reflection of safety in
Right,
organizations.
right, right.
So good. I mean, I hope it's been I don't think we really stop talking about it, or really there's some immediate answers to it. But I think it's like working in hand in glove. I mean, if we change and if we create small changes in our environment, and how do you take it into customer organizations? And I think it's going to be a process.
Right.
It is a journey, I think, where a journey of self-awareness, a journey of reflection, and I think change happens in iterative small steps. So
Yeah.
it starts with I think the first step is just reflecting and understanding that, okay, something needs to be done where psychological safety is concerned, and what do we do now? What's the next step?
Yeah.
Yes, right. Good.